The Red Mittens. Two mittens, lost by two different people in a lonely city, until they found each other and brought their owners together. Winter came to Briar Hollow the way a song comes back to you, slowly at first, then all at once. Shop windows fogged, footsteps softened, porch lights made small golden islands in the early dark. On the first Saturday of December, Lena Morales stood with her daughter Maya at the outdoor market, where stalls sold cinnamon nuts, knitted scarves, and ornaments painted like tiny moons. The air smelled like pine and caramel, and above them strings of lights blinked patiently, as if the sky itself were keeping time. "Try them," the vendor said, setting a pair of bright red mittens on the table. They were wool, hand-knit, with a white snowflake stitched into each palm. Maya slid her hands inside and grinned. "They're warm," she said, wiggling her fingers. "Like they remember," the vendor replied, with the wisdom of people who've sold winter things for a very long time. Lena bought them, tucked them into Maya's coat sleeves, and kissed the top of her head. "For your snowman empire," she teased. They walked home through a quiet snowfall, stopping once to leave birdseed on the low wall by Mrs. Adler's house. Maya pressed her mittened hands together and made a wish you only make when you're small, and snowflakes count as messengers. "I hope winter is kind this year," she whispered. The Heart's winter, two lost mittens. 2 streets away, Gabe Turner dragged his sled up Mill Hill, cheeks bright, breath puffing. He was old enough to go alone, he'd told his grandmother, and she'd nodded with a look he didn't quite understand, half proud, half worried, fully loving. The hill was pure joy and a little bit daring. He flew down once, twice, 3 times, each run carving a ribbon of proof across the white. On the 4th, a gust of wind lifted his hat and made his eyes water, and when he trudged back up, one hand felt raw in the cold. He looked down. His right mitten, red with a stitched white snowflake, was gone. Gabe retraced his steps, searching the grooves his sled had made. Snow kept falling, erasing small clues. He checked the thorn bush at the bottom of the hill, the chain-link fence along the path, even the low branch that snagged coats like a prankster. Nothing. He held the lone mitten he still had up to the gray sky and tried to laugh it off. It came out thinner than he meant. The pair had been a gift from his grandmother last year, when she told him winter was easier when your hands were taken care of. "Okay," he said to the empty hill, "I'll be braver than my fingers." He tucked the surviving mitten deep in his pocket and walked home with his hands curled tight in his sleeves. That same afternoon, on the far side of the park, Maya and Lena stopped to watch skaters circle the pond. Maya clapped when a girl in a green hat spun once without falling. She pressed her hands to the fence to cheer. The left mitten slipped free and dropped into the snow by the path. Maya didn't notice. The wind covered it. The afternoon folded into evening, the way Saturdays do when you're happy and not counting. It wasn't until bath time that she realized, "Mom, my mitten!" They checked pockets, the hall table, under the couch, under the cat. Nothing. Lena kissed her daughter's forehead. "It's okay," she said. "One mitten is a lonely thing, but sometimes lonely things find each other." Maya nodded bravely, but when the lights were out, she tucked the remaining mitten under her pillow like a secret. The spark of wonder. The bench by the elm. The next morning the town woke to a clean, bright cold. Sunlight turned every snowdrift into 1,000 diamonds. People stepped outside and had the strange, pleasant feeling that they were the first ones to ever see their own street. On her way to open the bookshop, Lena paused by the old elm bench where Briar Hollow pinned its small notices: piano lessons, missing cats, cookie exchanges. Something red caught her eye, a mitten half buried on the seat, white snowflake winking. She brushed it off. The wool was thick and familiar. "Oh," she breathed, smiling at the sky. "Hello there." She turned it over once, twice. The cuff had a little snag she knew too well. Maya tugged her sleeves when she was excited. It was Maya's left mitten. On impulse, she pulled a pen from her coat and wrote on a scrap of paper from her bag. "Lost something warm? We found it. The other red mitten lives at Morales Books, 3rd and Pine." She propped the note beneath the mitten and left for the shop, the good kind of hurry in her steps. Across the square, Gabe had been sent to the bakery for Sunday rolls. He cut through the park and slowed near the bench, because benches were where good things happened in Briar Hollow. Dogs made friends. Grandparents rested. Teenagers pretended not to be seen. The red on the wood tugged at him. He jogged closer, breath visible, boots squeaking. His heart did the small lift it does when something lost is nearly found. He picked up the mitten. Red wool, white snowflake, same knit, same weight. But when he slipped it onto his bare right hand, the thumb sat wrong, left mitten. He laughed once, surprised by the sound. Then he read the note. "Morales Books," he said aloud, liking how the words fit together. He tucked the mitten into his coat and ran. The gift within, shelves and snowflakes. Morales Books was the kind of shop that smelled like paper and possibility. The bell over the door gave a hopeful little ring when you entered, and the windows always wore hand-lettered quotes that made you want to be kinder. Lena was sweeping a soft line of salt crystals from the rug when Gabe burst in, hair wild under his hat, cheeks heroic. "I think," he panted, lifting the mitten like a flag. "I found your sign." Lena's whole face brightened. "And I think you found our mitten." From behind the counter, Maya popped up like toast. "Mine." Gabe held it out. "If it's yours, it's a very good mitten." She slipped it on. Perfect. She pulled the other from her pocket and put both up to her cheeks. They match. Lena laughed, then looked at Gabe's hands. One bare, one pocketed. "Did you lose one too?" He shrugged, trying to be casual. "Maybe." "Describe it," Maya said, very official. "Red," he said. "Snowflake on the palm. It was my right one." Maya gasped. "This is left." They stared at each other, a delicate turning moment where the world became smaller in the right way. Lena reached under the counter and placed an old cookie tin on top. She peeled back the lid. Inside lay lost and found things that had collected over years. A marble, a charm bracelet, a single blue earring, 4 unmatched gloves, and, breath held, a red right mitten with a white snowflake stitched in the palm. Gabe reached down as if waking something asleep. He slid his hand in. Perfect. "How did that?" he started. "People leave lonely things with us," Lena said. "Books find their readers. Mittens find their partners. We just keep a good light in the window." Gabe wiggled his fingers and grinned. "My grandma says that about church." "She's right," Lena replied. Maya tilted her head. "Do you want to make a sign with me for the mitten bench?" "What would it say?" Gabe asked. She thought. "Something like, 'If you lose something warm, leave something kind.'" Gabe nodded like he'd been waiting to agree to that all his life. They set to work at the little table by the display of winter stories, construction paper, glue, markers that smelled like fruit. Lena brewed cocoa and found 2 peppermint sticks she pretended not to remember were in the back. While they wrote and drew, people wandered in for books. Mr. Harper for a mystery, the Adler twins for a craft guide, Mrs. Nguyen for new poetry, and paused to smile at the Mitten reunion. When the sign was finished, they bundled back into their coats, Mittens secure. The 3 of them walked to the elm bench and taped it carefully, smoothing the corners like a blessing. Maya placed a basket beneath with a label, "Mittens and gloves, take if you're cold, leave if you can." Lena added a second note, "Need a warm drink? Morales books, no purchase needed." They stood for a moment, quiet, watching snow begin again, new flakes finding old ones, small miracles choosing where to land. "Looks good," Gabe said. "It looks like a promise," Maya whispered. The whisper of Christmas, a streetwearer's red word, traveled the whimsical way it does in small towns. By late afternoon, the basket held 2 pairs of children's gloves, a man's wool cap, and a scarf that smelled faintly of cedar. By evening, the scarf was gone, and in its place, someone had slipped a note. "Thank you. I was colder than I knew." At dusk, Mrs. Adler tied 3 more pairs of mittens to the bench with green yarn, her hands trembling less with each knot. She tucked a small anonymous envelope under the basket handle, the kind with grocery gift cards inside that appear in towns with good benches. Gabe returned with his grandmother, who pressed Lena's hands and said, "Bless you for finding what people mean to keep." They bought a paperback for the long evenings and left a pair of brand new socks in the basket because socks are a prayer when the ground is hard. Night came early. The lights above the market clicked on, soft and bright. Maya and Gabe stayed by the window of the bookshop, making paper snowflakes to hang along the glass. Each one was different, each one perfect enough to belong. Across the street, a man with no hat paused at the bench, took the cedar-smelling scarf, and folded a note into the basket that simply read, "Tomorrow, it's my turn." He came back the next morning with 3 hats. On Christmas Eve, the basket overflowed. The sign gathered small kisses of frost and tape upon tape where people had added their own messages. Hot soup at the church, 6 p.m. Need help shoveling? 555-0138. My mom can mend holes. Leave on porch at 22 Birch. Briar Hollow looked festive in the usual ways, trees and lights and mugs and music. But this new red at the heart of town made it look kind. Just after sunset, snow began again. People came out to admire the bench and leave a little more than they took. Someone started to hum. Someone else brought a thermos. A child slipped a candy cane into the basket because you must feed joy if you want it to stay. Maya pressed her red-mittened hands to Gabe's and whispered, "Friends." "Friends," he said, mittens touching like a quiet oath. Epilogue, pears and promises. January came the way all Januaries do, honest and cold. The bench stayed busy. Some days it held only 1 glove and a brave note. Other days it looked like a small store run by generosity. When the thaw finally started, the basket emptied and refilled more slowly. The sign faded a little at the corners. The town learned it could take care of itself, even when the snow wasn't there to make it obvious. Lena kept the cookie tin open at the bookshop. People still brought in unmatched things, and sometimes, weeks or months later, their partners wandered in on their own, pretending it was coincidence. Gabe and Maya became the unofficial keepers of the bench. They checked it after school, tied on new strings, brushed off snow. They learned to recognize the look someone wore when they needed to be handed something without any fuss. On the first warm day of March, a letter arrived at Morales Books with no return address. Inside was a photograph. The elm bench in full winter, the sign bright, the basket full, and two children in red mittens taping down a corner together. On the back, a note in tidy writing. Some winters ask us to hold each other's hands. From across the street, thank you for the bridge. Lena framed it and hung it by the door. That following December, when snow returned like a familiar song, Maya tugged on her red mittens, the ones that had found each other, and smiled at their white snowflakes as if they could smile back. Across town, Gabe tugged on his too. If you'd walked by the elm bench that night, you would have seen the sign newly taped, the basket newly set out, and two pairs of small red handprints pressed in the snow beneath, like signatures on a promise renewed, because mittens do what hands cannot do alone. And sometimes the simplest red against the white is how a town remembers who it is, and that's how Christmas found its way into another heart.